Here on the ground, change happens fast. Problems feel frequent and urgent. It's loud and anxiety runs high. From a satellite view, the Earth looks the same as it did thousands of years ago. We've been here before. Let's learn from our past and shoot for a better future.
Hello and welcome to this episode of A Satellite View. I'm Todd Mikkelson, your host, speaking at you from Sunday, June 8th, 2025, in the space and time continuum. It was just a week ago last night that Ukraine launched this drone attack into Russia. An incredible story, Trojan horse story. I'm sure you've heard it. Sounds like a Tom Cruise movie kind of thing. Adventure. The trucks go in, they hid the drones in the roof cavity and then had a remote control and opened the roofs and crazy. Very interesting story. Harrowing. And then Donald Trump disappeared for 4 or 5 days, four solid days, I believe. He said nothing about this attack. I don't know that he still has said anything of any kind of substance about it. Of course, our mainstream media doesn't ask. They don't, and they weren't inquiring, like, where in the hell is the President of the United States? There was nothing on his schedule for actually Saturday either. He was golfing with some guys. That was the last video that he was seen on, was Saturday afternoon before this attack even happened, or maybe around the same time. And he disappeared. There was nothing on his schedule for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and I think Wednesday. He made a video in the Oval Office. I think it was about the travel ban. There's just tons of stuff being thrown at us this week. Travel ban of 12 countries, but he didn't let anybody else in the room. Now, we've seen him practically every day bring the press into the Oval Office. He didn't bring the press into the Oval Office. And he was trying his hardest to read from a teleprompter. Who knows how many takes that took to get the video down. That was filmed on Wednesday. And then I think it was Thursday then that he let the press back in and made a fool of himself all over again like he did before. What was going on? Now, I have a pretty good idea what was going on. This cocktail that keeps him active or upright or anywhere near cohesiveness, at least enough to walk across a room. I don't think the cocktail's working very well anymore. I think he was down. Maybe he had a slight stroke again or for the first time. We don't know. Nobody's telling us. Caroline Leavitt, his press secretary, was struggling during that period of time. To me, it seemed obvious they were covering up for the fact that he was incapacitated, and they were going to try and cover it up and see if he came back. They slowly brought him back. They let him do a video. It was kind of like, hey, we need to make sure that all these Republicans know this guy's still alive. Since then, it seems like things have kind of gone back to normal for him. Now, at the beginning of this week, Heidi, my wife and co-producer of this show, she said, Trump is a distraction. We should focus on what comes next. And this is true. Never has the United States gone 4 solid days without knowing where the president is and nobody asking what's going on with that. Trump is basically irrelevant at this point. He's the front man for the idiots who are trying to implement the Project 2025 initiative, and it's not going very well for them. Here's something that's really interesting, kind of going off topic here. Al Green, a representative in the House in D.C., he introduced impeachment initiatives, and now he has decided to include J.D. Vance. He wants both Donald Trump and J.D. Vance to be impeached. That's very interesting. Now, another thing that happened this week while Trump was down, Elon Musk came out against the, quote, big, beautiful bill, which is a complete farce. It is, oh man, so much more to talk about just having to do with that even. But let's get into this thing with Elon Musk and Trump. I'm sure you've heard about it. Everybody was reveling in the fun of the whole, feud going on between the titans of narcissism. Elon Musk went against the bill. And then on that Thursday in the Oval Office, Trump was asked about it and he said, I don't know, Elon, you need, and he said these things about Elon Musk that set Elon Musk off. And Elon Musk then let Trump have it. He said a couple of things. One of them was Donald Trump would not have won this election had it not been for me. The Democrats would be in the majority of the House, and the Senate would have a 51-49 GOP majority. Specific numbers, he knew exactly what would have been if he had not been involved. People are just treating that, at least mainstream media is just treating it like, oh, well, of course he's talking about the money. No amount of money could have won this for Trump. We all saw it. He couldn't get anyone to come to his rallies. He couldn't speak in coherent sentences. He was going crazy. During the debate, it was insane. Remember that? They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. No, it was so obvious that he was going to lose in a landslide. Money was not going to buy it. And that was proven later when Elon Musk dumped an unprecedented amount of money into the election for a Supreme Court judge in Wisconsin. He was going, doing the same thing he did for Trump for the GOP monster that was running for that seat in Wisconsin. And the Democrat won by, was it 11 points? At least 11 points, or maybe it was like 15 points. She won it handily. So no amount of money was going to buy the 2024 presidential election. But the mainstream media is just saying, oh, that's what he's talking about. Yeah, he's just talking about the money. No, that's not what he was talking about. Elon Musk is on the verge. And he's, by the way, had very little self-control. Of course, he's also pissed because the New York Times, less than a week ago, came out with the story that he's a complete drug addict. I mean, overwhelmingly in a bad place. And the way he acted on Thursday, putting tweet after tweet, very, very huge. The next one was, Donald Trump is all over the Epstein Files. That's why they will not release the Epstein Files. The Trump administration people now, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, are covering for Trump. That's what Elon Musk said on Thursday. And very disappointingly, I heard even Nicole Wallace, who I do like Nicole Wallace. I think she does a good job on MSNBC. Anytime she said that, Elon Musk said that Donald Trump's all over the Epstein Files, which there is no public evidence of. That's a lie, Nicole. There is public evidence. There was publicly released lists of phone records and airplane logs where Trump is on it. We already know Trump was on Epstein's airplane at least 7 times. He's on the record, in the records of the Epstein Files as being on the airplane 7 times. There's also a lot of other evidence that came out during the Ghislaine Maxwell hearing about Trump and Trump himself and Epstein himself saying they were best buddies. So sadly, Nicole Wallace was lying. I imagine it's because her corporate boss said, anytime you say Donald Trump is in the Epstein Files, you have to say there's no public evidence of that because they don't want to get sued. Kind of a hilarious thing happened when Anderson Cooper from CNN interviewed Scott Pelley from 60 Minutes. He's a 60 Minutes correspondent. And they were talking about this subject. And Scott Pelley said, everyone's afraid to tell the truth. The huge networks are afraid to tell the truth. Their corporate ownership will not let them tell the truth. And of course, Anderson Cooper is looking very uncomfortable because, of course, Anderson Cooper's caught in that too. And there's also more proof of it as Terry Moran, who's a very good correspondent on ABC, wrote the truth about Stephen Miller and Donald Trump, and they suspended him. Independent media is finally breaking through, forcing legacy media to cover truth. Terry Moran tried to cover truth. He got suspended. He's going to be a hero. He already is. Everyone can see. He told the truth, and ABC suspended him. Now, part of this truth coming out is the result is 57% of Americans think Trump's age is affecting his presidency. That was a question that was finally asked after everyone talked about Biden. But places like Midas Touch, I talked about the Majority Report. People like Emma Vigeland, Sam Cedar, Ben Meiselas, and others are getting at the actual truth. And Midas Touch has more viewership on their podcast and a lot of the clips they put out on YouTube every day. They get more viewership than any of these networks, than any of these television networks. So the media is in shambles. They're afraid to say that Elon Musk was talking about the fact that he changed the vote tally using Starlink. You've heard me say it here for months. It has been proven, and the evidence is out there. More is going to come out. It needs to come out in a way that everybody is convinced. If Elon Musk says it, I think that'll do the trick. The maggots, this isn't some Democrat saying it. This isn't me saying it. This is Elon Musk saying, I did it. I think he wants to be seen as the hero that saved America from Donald Trump. He will never be seen as that, but I think that's what he wants to be seen as. Now, Trump went so far as to say he would cancel all of Elon Musk's subsidies for his corporations. How much? $68 billion in subsidies to Elon Musk's companies, trying to shut Elon Musk up. Yeah, and you can tell Trump is still scared to talk about Elon Musk. Another thing having to do with this vote count thing, Rockland County, New York. Very interesting thing going on in Rockland County, New York. Let's take a short break. We'll come back and we'll start it there, and then we'll talk about these distractions. Satellite View. If you like the music you hear here, go to toddmickelson.com and push the music link, and then go to satelliteviewpodcast.com and sign up to be on our emailer. It'll let you know when these shows come out. You can also go to my Instagram, follow me there at Todd Mikkelson. Anyway, getting back into this, I mentioned Rockland County, New York. The New York Supreme Court has said, yes, go ahead with discovery in this case. There's a case that in Rockland County to basically recount the votes. Not just recount the votes, but do some investigation. similar to what has been being done by electiontruthalliance.org. Go there, and there's a lot of proof about the vote tally being changed. There is a district in Rockland County, New York, where Kirsten Gillibrand, who ran for the Senate and won, she's been in the Senate for a while now, she got 79% of the vote in this district where Kamala Harris got 0% of the vote. All right? There's more statistics. I'm not going to get too much into the numbers, but Donald Trump won by a large percentage more than the down ballot Republicans. And the opposite is true for Kamala Harris. All of the down ticket Democrats did quite a percentage-wise better than she did in Rockland County, New York. It's one county as an example of what Elon Musk did in the 2024 presidential election. And it is in court. And people are talking about it, but you may not have heard about it because our mainstream media doesn't seem to want to go there. For some reason, I don't know. They're afraid of getting sued or something. Very disappointing. But that coupled up with, and that happened just at the beginning of this week. That ruling was made just at the beginning of this week. And then 3 days later, maybe 4 days later, Elon Musk says Donald Trump would not have won this election had it not been for me. And then he gave specific numbers of who exactly would have won and lost in the Senate. Okay, now you can do a review of my own show to see all of the details about, him putting a low orbit array of satellites using Starlink over the country, gaining him access to every voting machine in every district in the United States. Election Truth Alliance has been doing a lot of research in the swing states. They have overwhelming, undeniable evidence that this happened both in Nevada and Pennsylvania and some other places. And now they're getting helped out by Rockland County and this court case. So that's what they want to distract from. Also, next Saturday is Trump's birthday parade, supposedly. It's really odd how they're not ramping up to it. They're not talking about it. You would think Donald Trump and all his people would be saying, and don't forget, next week is the big parade. They're not doing that. And it's really weird. Next week also, there are more than 1,800 organized protests going on next Saturday called No Kings, because, of course, Donald Trump's not supposed to be a king. And Donald Trump, or the people around him, I don't know what he knows anymore. His brain, I think, is pretty mushy at this point, but they know that these protests are going to be much better attended than his stupid parade, if his parade happens. We did see a whole bunch of tanks coming in on train cars into Washington, D.C. Yesterday or the day before. I predicted it wasn't going to happen. I thought everything was going to have fallen apart by then, and I could still be true. I could still be correct. Last week was a big part of the downfall of this administration. Elon Musk, and there's no putting that genie back in the bottle. There's no putting that toothpaste back in the toothpaste thingy, the tube. This is permanent damage. And what is the media talking about? They seem to almost be happy about what's going on in Los Angeles, and there's not enough going on in Los Angeles, so they're having to drum it up like, we're here live in Los Angeles where it's just chaotic and blah, blah, blah. when in reality, there were no riots in Los Angeles. The LAPD came out and said, these are peaceful protests. There were maybe a couple small incidents, but otherwise, massive people coming out protesting against Trump's Gestapo kidnapping people left and right without knowing who they are, coming in and kidnapping people, throwing them in unmarked vans and hauling them away to who knows where. And people are protesting. And wow, they're being very brave. The ICE guys are trying to throw these smoke flash, whatever. I call them bang poofs after these little things that my band bought when I was in junior high that made little explosions on our stage. They were normally used by magicians. They wouldn't make a noise, but you would put some flash paper and some powder in there and it would, and anyway. So I call them bang poofs. And people don't seem to really be that scared of those. The people were really standing up to these guys. I was really proud of these people. Very brave. And they're making the ICE guys back off and lock themselves in buildings because they're scared of the people, even though they have these big army guns. They're dressed like army guys, and they have bulletproof vests on. And they're scared of regular people in the street. There was no excuse for Donald Trump to call 2,000 or to federalize 2,000 National Guard, California National Guard troops and send them in there. There was no need for it. The governor said there was no need for this. I was not asked, by the way, and I did not put in a request like is normally supposed to happen as the governor of the state. The LAPD said, these protests are peaceful and we commend the people for exercising their First Amendment rights. That was an official statement the LAPD put out. Yet, the Trump administration sent in troops, and they're saying there was a lot of violence and we had to do it. Now, people are getting scared about martial law. That's not going to happen. It can't happen. Our country's too big. You can't call martial law. Germany is about the size of like Minnesota and Iowa together, okay? The United States, you can't call martial law for all of the United States. It's just impossible. There aren't enough troops or law enforcement. You just can't do it. Military experts have said it's impossible to have national martial law in the United States. It's just impossible. So Trump is trying to scare everybody because he doesn't want people to be looking at the Epstein Files. He did the exact same thing. In June of 2020, the Epstein trial was supposed to begin, right? And what did Trump do? He did a little experiment by sending troops into Portland and having them just take people off the streets and put them in unmarked vans, see what would happen, to see how people would react. And they lied about what people were doing in those protests about George Floyd back then. The violence that occurred was staged by, what are they called, Boogaloo Boys or whatever those little cowards are? Anyway, same thing is happening now. Do not be alarmed when you turn on the news and they're going, we're here live in Los Angeles and oh no! The protests are peaceful. The Trump administration's trying to escalate everything. And it doesn't seem to be working. The people are staying calm. The people are staying strong. The people kicked a Fox News crew out off of their street. Get the fuck out of here. The people said, and Fox News ran away. The people are in charge in Los Angeles. The police department has said these are peaceful protests. It's all a distraction, desperate distraction from what's about to happen. The protests that are going to go on next week that are going to make Trump's parade, if it happens, look like a silly little joke. The Pope is having, at the same time as Trump's little birthday parade, is having a mass in Chicago. You know that mass is going to be massive. They're trying to distract from all of these things. They're trying to make it so that we're watching a war zone in Los Angeles, and they're trying to make it look like a war zone. It's not working. Let's help them make sure it does not work. We're in charge. People are coming out and playing their role. I don't know. I had a lot more on my list here. Here's something that's really interesting. House Republicans sent a letter to the Republican Senate, to the Republicans in the Senate, saying, please fix the bill that we passed. It's a horrible bill. Can you please fix it so that we can vote for it again? Because the way it is now, we can't vote for it again. It's a horrible bill. They're asking the Senate to save them. It's so pathetic. And they're explaining these cuts to renewable energy sources could have been, created new jobs, could have created jobs for our constituents in our rural counties. It could make America competitive again in renewable energy. If these cuts that we voted for go through, we will no longer be a competitive country in this, and hundreds of thousands of people will lose their jobs. They're basically explaining that what Biden did created hundreds of thousands of jobs and made America competitive in the renewable energy. And then we voted to get rid of Biden's really great things that he did. Can you please change this bill to replace the Biden policies so that we can vote yes? Fucking twerps. All of them. So, of course, MAGA Mike Johnson, it's devastating for him and his silly role. And, of course, Elon, well, I tried to talk to Elon. I've been texting him, telling him, this is a beautiful bill. This is a big, beautiful bill, and it's going to save us. It's not going to cost us. It's going to save us. And I'm trying to tell that to Elon, but he won't return my calls. We were friends. We were friends just on Monday, but now we're not. I can't. Now he's ghosting me. Yeah, you little twerp. So, distraction after distraction after distraction. Let's keep our eye on what's really happening. Remember, I said last week and or the week before, around July 1st, I think likely even sooner, but by July 1st, Anonymous is going to do a huge reveal that they say will be so revealing and overwhelmingly evident that nobody will question it. And it will be the downfall of the Republicans, the Trump regime, basically all this darkness. The little fingers that are holding on after the main darkness left last July, these little fingers that are still so desperately holding on right now with their desperate distractions. These little fingers of darkness, which include Donald Trump and, by the way, still Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, these oligarchs that are trying to steal the United States from the rest of us, they know what is about to happen. They know what is about to be revealed. They know how devastating it is going to be to them. So it's breaking loose. It really is. I mean, the pressure has built up so much. The pressure is getting to be too much. They have taken it too far. Last week I said this has to end. It is going to end. You can see how desperate they are right now. And when they get desperate, it's the cornered animal that knows it's about to die. And they do crazy things, and it gets scary for their very last throws. But then they die. We're closer and closer to that. My friend Doug was like, "Oh man, what happened to the Elon Musk Donald Trump thing? I thought that was gonna, okay, it is a big part of this. It really is, but it's one part. There's so many moving parts to this. the vote count thing. I've tried to cover all of the moving parts here. I hope I've given you a little bit of an idea. There's a lot of moving parts going on here. The Elon Musk, Donald Trump spat is just one. Now, it is like if you're having engine trouble and you lost a bolt here and there, this is more like the one of the head. I don't know enough about terminology of engines. This is like a head blowing off. So all the pistons on one side of the engine just came shooting out. Okay? So that was a lot of moving parts. That represents a lot of problems. A bigger problem that blew half the engine up. But there are still many, many bolts and different things falling off the engine and oil being spewed about. And when the oil runs out, the engine seizes up. We're getting there. We're getting close. This Elon Musk Donald Trump feud is a huge deal. And we can't go backwards with it. Elon Musk can't come out and say, I was just kidding about him being in the Epstein Files. As a matter of fact, he followed it up and said, something like, I will apologize once the Epstein Files are completely released. Something to that effect. I should have got the wording right before I came on. But he said that on, I think, Friday, the day after the big fight. Elon Musk is saying, hey, release the Epstein Files. If he's not in it, I'll apologize. And they won't release the Epstein Files. Wow. They also have not said that Donald Trump is not in the Epstein Files. Nobody has said that. They have not stuck up for Donald Trump. They just kind of skirt over it. So, very interesting stuff. A huge, huge week. And they're desperately trying to distract from these numbers of different things. Numbers of moving parts. They're having trouble in Congress. They're having trouble in the administration. They're having trouble with their oligarchs, their supporters. It's becoming pretty overwhelming for them. So don't be overwhelmed. We're all in this together. Let's keep each other sane. Let's stick together. Let's not be distracted. Let's certainly not be scared by their BS distractions. And thank you so much for listening this week. I hope I informed you about some things you didn't know about. Let's just make sure that, really, again, the only thing to fear is fear itself. Yes, it's going really horribly scary for some people, but those of us who are not being kidnapped by the Gestapo, we need to keep it together so that we can keep supporting them, like all of the many great people in Los Angeles right now and other cities standing up against these thugs, these twerpy little bullies. It's very maddening, but we need to stay focused. Okay? Let's not let them have that effect on us. Let's not be scared by them, and let's not be distracted by them. Let's stick together. All right. We're going a little over again. Not as much as usual, but still thank you for sticking with me this week on A Satellite View. I'm Todd Mikkelson, and I will be speaking at you next week.
You've been listening to A Satellite View with Todd Mikkelson. Go to toddmikkelson.com for links and more information.